Hello, welcome to your daily dose of truth to hear. I'm Melanie Keenan, and this is Truth Talk. It's great to be back after a week off. I had to take a week for personal reasons, but I'll tell you what, there was no slacking in the news, there was no lack of things to talk about, that's for sure. So we have a new president, President Biden, and his administration. One thing that sets him apart from the rest of the presidents, I mean, all of them, is his amount of executive orders. Today, we're going to talk about what is an executive order and do we even care? Does it really matter that he is ruling by an executive order for the first stint of his presidency? Is this a solo presidency? Does he ever intend to hand it back to the legislative branch? Well, we're going to talk about that as well as some key points of his executive orders that really will affect you, the economy of the United States, and how things are done. And some you may have heard of, but I guarantee you haven't heard of all of it. So just a couple, though. We're not going to overload you today. But before we do that, I don't want to do this alone. So welcome to the panel. Brandy, how are you doing today? Oh, Brandy, wait, I have to unmute you. There we go. Welcome to the panel. So, first we welcome Brandy Hunt. She is a publisher and author. Brandy, thank you for coming back to Truth Talk. I really love having you on.
Thank you. Thank you for having me back. And I'm glad to see your beautiful face and Bill.
Yes, Bill is here, Bill Kaufman. And Bill Kaufman, he's a retired, not so retired police officer here in Central Coast, California. And he's also an amazing teacher of the Word of God. But beyond that, what we didn't know is that he is an historian. So this is the perfect show for him because we rely on his expertise. Welcome, Bill.
Hello. Yeah, I do love history. I'm kind of a history nerd, actually, is what I am. I read history books and periodicals and websites, and I'm so disappointed in the History Channel because it used to be all about history, and now it's about ice road truckers and American pickers. And it used to be just like I could just watch it for days on end.
I know I raised my kids on the History Channel. There was one really good show, Drive Through History. If you guys, have you heard that show, Bill?
Yes.
Yeah. Brandy, you haven't? Drive Through History, because I homeschooled, and Drive Through History, we got the whole curriculum actually, because he just drove to places and taught all about the history like on site, and it was just amazing. I loved Drive Through History, but that's my extent of knowledge of history. So executive orders, guys. Let me ask you this: do you care about the amount of executive orders personally that this president has already issued?
Well, he definitely has. Almost all of them were undoing what the previous administration's done. And he ran on that. So I guess that's okay in my mind, because that's true. But I think it's interesting. Every executive order that President Trump came up with, the entire left rose up and sued and got judges, and usually it was some small judge, somebody in like a small town somewhere that was a federal judge, and they said, well, that's unconstitutional, and then it had to go all the way to the Supreme Court. I don't know how many things went to the Supreme Court, and I think every executive order that he did was upheld in the Supreme Court, but everything was fought, and I haven't seen anything being fought right now. There's nobody saying anything, and maybe they are, and we're just not hearing about it because I don't know why. That's my concern. Isn't that he's doing that because presidents can do this, but there should be somebody saying, ho, 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 you can't, we don't have a king, we have a president, which the president has a lot of power, but so does Congress and so does the judiciary. It's a shared power that checks and balances. And if there's no checks and balances, I don't really know how that's going to work. I mean, I don't. And that's about my extent of knowledge of it.
Brandy, what about you? Someone who doesn't look at it through history. Do you care that we have a president that seems to be a solo president, at least in this stage? That he is just executive ordering everything. And Bill, I will tell you that we're going to talk about some of it today. There are a lot of challenges on his bills, but it's not coming from the Senate or the Congress. It's not coming a lot from politicians. It's coming from corporations and organizations. So you're right.
But
The political world,
that's not somebody that I haven't seen any judges making decisions.
no, there's
Day one from the Trump administration, okay, we're going to do this, and then some judge somewhere said no, unconstitutional.
yeah,
You
no,
can
they're
always
not
find
fighting
that.
any of this,
You
but
can
the
always
regular
find that.
everyday organizations are
Yeah,
trying to at
I don't
least
know.
raise a voice.
I haven't seen any anyway myself.
Brandy, what about you? Go ahead.
Do I care? I care about the outcome. I don't care how it gets done, because I feel like I heard a saying a long time ago: if we always do what we always done, we're always going to get what we always got. And so, if he came in and ruffled feathers and did it a different way, hopefully it's going to have a different outcome. Because I'm pretty sure we're all tired of seeing a president go in, make all these promises, and nothing changes, or stuff changes. It just doesn't change for us down here, the little guys and
Right.
gals. And so for me, like the stuff that he's changing is actually hitting, standard American households versus big changes that we never see or never feel the impact of. So for me, I do care. I just want it to be right. I don't care who does it. I just want it to be done right.
The 2 points that you guys make is one, he ran on what he's doing. It
Right.
it it isn't a surprise. What he's doing, you can clearly see he ran on this. Now, some of it, and we'll talk about one, the pipeline, that was a surprise to the union workers because he ran on the union. But yet the first thing he did was slap the union a little bit, and cause a big impact with a promise of the future, though, for the union. So it's kind of topsy turvy. I hit you now, but the future is
You're
something we got,
But he
in
ran on
plan.
that. He actually did, depending on where he went. Like all politicians, by the way, I'm not picking on him alone. When he was in oil state, we're not touching oil. When he was not in an oil state, oil's done. So you
Right.
got to listen to what politicians say all the time, not just to you, because and not picking on him, this is a politician thing. They'll look you in the eye and say, you're the most important person I've ever known, and I'm going to make sure you are okay. And then somebody who has the opposite agenda of yours, when he's talking to them, they do the exact same thing. So he's flat out said he's going to end oil, and people didn't believe it. I actually talked to quite a few people that said, oh, no, that's just pandering. He will never close the pipeline because that's thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs. We're paying almost nothing for oil. We're independent for the first time ever in the history of United States, at least in our lifetime. We're not dependent on foreign oil. We're not giving Saudi Arabia so much money and all these other things. So he'll never do it. And then the first thing he did was, boom, yeah, I'm going to do it. So,
Exactly.
but he said he was going to do it. So I don't really have a problem with him doing it. I have more of a problem with people who said, well, I'm going to vote for the guy, even though I work for the oil industry, because he won't possibly do what he just said he was going to do. That's the ones I'm like, why would you say that?
Well, I think though, I think people underestimated Joe Biden, period, because of his age and senility and whatnot. Um, uh, but I think that what happened is he did say he would do all these things. Nobody expected it to be upfront. Executive order, active executive order. So, what is an executive order? I want to backtrack just a minute. Here's a definition of an executive order: it is used to lead the nation in times of war, to respond to natural disasters, economic crisis, promote or revoke civil rights. So, within this definition, he's perfectly within his right on an economic crisis standpoint, right? To do whatever changes he feels he needs to do. But here's the question: do you think there should be some kind of accountability as to why this needs to be an executive order versus going through our legislative branch? Or is this going to be a continual way that what do you think? Is he going to continue to preside over the presidency in this way, or is this just to undo Trump?
Well, it depends on how much backlash he gets, I think. Right now, his party is in charge of everything. They're in charge of the House, the Senate, 50-50 Senate, but they're in charge. And they're in charge of the presidency. So they're in charge of all the legislative and executive branch. And if they don't get if he gets no pushback on this, the one thing you can't deny, the Trump administration got pushback from,
Right.
his political opponents. If Biden's political opponents do not push back hard, then I think he will continue to do it. And I think that most people would. The problem with what Brandy, and I want you to think about this just for a second. You said you didn't care how would they do it, just so long as it gets done. I agree with that in the short term. Like, if I believe something should be done, I'm happy it got done. I don't deny that I would be that way. But I think we need to be really cautious on going so far as to say, just so long as it gets done. Because if you get so that you have that kind of a leadership, when they start they have that much power, and they've solidified that much power. When they start doing things you don't like and you scream bloody murder, they don't have to listen to you.
Right.
So you have to, our checks and balances, I think, is a really good thing. So just to get what you want done, go ahead and give the guy all the power. That, I think, isn't good in the long run, because then the next guy that gets into the office is not your guy, because it is 50-50. It's like they go back and forth. So then the other guy comes in and goes, well, we used to have to do this, but I don't even have to listen to anybody anymore because the last president didn't have to listen to anybody. And that's dangerous.
Brandy, what do you say to that? Because what do you say to that? Should there be even, how do you do that? Like we said, there's a presidential right to do executive orders. You can't cap it now because he's utilizing it to his advantage. We can't go in and say, okay, now we cap it at this, or you can't change any part of it because, the way the system is set up is the way it's set up. Do you think there should be any kind of oversight on why all these executive orders, or the next 10 that gets passed, we need to check and balance it, or just let him run with it? When would you say enough's enough?
I mean, I definitely agree with you, Bill. I'm not saying by any means necessary we just do whatever we want to do when we get in there, because that wouldn't be right. Somebody's getting hurt at the end of the day. I think somebody's winning, somebody's losing, somebody's gaining, somebody's gain is somebody else's loss. So I think as a president, I would have to see what I think you just said. What is the long-term goal here? While it might be painful on the front end, maybe the long-term goal is going to be a bigger win. Just going in, pulling what I used to call my trump card. I guess that's a real thing now. So, I'm coming in, I'm pulling my trump card because I'm the boss. I'm the big man in town. I don't feel like that's what he's doing, but he does have the power to do so if necessary. I do think that there are people that are looking over his shoulder going, yeah, I think that's too much. I think you need to pull it on back. We don't see those people, but I still think that they're there saying, hey, let's not do it that way because these people over here will be affected, or these people over here will be affected. But I do think that at the end of the day, I think each president comes in with their own agenda, because that's how we end up voting for them. I'll do said things. And this is why I'm the greatest man or woman for the job. And then they get in there, they start kind of doing it and kind of not doing it. And then for the next 4 years, we go, we want someone else because you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So, but to your
pretty
point,
much true. Yeah.
I do not think it's by any means necessary, because I feel like that would be an overhaul and an overkill. And a lot of people would be, fairly upset to just start snatching things just because I got the power now.
Well, talking about
and Brandy, I would say just what I'm saying isn't that even if good things are done by a person, if you set precedent that we don't have to have checks and balances anymore, because Congress isn't going to balk, the press isn't going to balk, nobody's going to say anything except for, and if you do, then everybody says, oh, that's just one of those crazy conspiracy people, we don't have to listen to them. That's dangerous, not because of what the person's doing, but because the way they're doing it. So he may have the best policies that's ever known to mankind, but I still would rather have checks and balances
And
because I'm worried about the future, not just today or even our life. How about our kids' lives and grandkids?
And I think that, there are some Democrats that's coming up and saying, hey, wait a minute, we need to stop doing so many executive orders. And so there is that.
Is that, I don't know who's, it might be mine. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure what that is. Sounds like movement, but no one's moving. There we go. There we go. It stopped.
Is it on more now?
Nope. I'm not sure what that is. But
Me neither. Might be
let's
my phone.
continue as much as we can. So talking about how it's affecting people, that short term here, long term may benefit. Let's talk about this executive order. And it's the one that says they stop construction on the Keystone XL oil pipeline. So what he did, there was already an existing 12,000-mile Keystone XL pipeline along a route that already existed, right? So it would take the oil pipeline from Nebraska to Alberta, Canada, and then provide a new extension to the Gulf Coast of Texas. So we're going all the way from Canada to Texas on this pipeline. And what they said is that it should have this decision affected 10,400 workers, 1,000 right off the bat, and up to 10,000 construction jobs lost. They're now unemployed. Okay, so my thing is this: what is the big deal to have done it right now? Like right now, we just have to stop the pipeline, and in this economic crisis that we have with COVID, just automatically just say, you know what, we're just going to end it. What I don't understand is a big deal, because we have BBC World News says this, that it was estimated it would have created 28,000 jobs. They're gone. What about the relations with Canada? Prime Minister Trudeau says we're disappointed, but they acknowledge the president's decision to cancel the permit. So while they didn't want that, they just were going to go with it, as you can't help but go with it, right? New Mexico's been affected. Their economy in New Mexico is based on this. So their schools, their government, their infrastructure all gets revenue and is supported by this pipeline, by this work. And so you're looking at a whole entire state that's now trying to figure out economically, what are we going to do? How are we going to keep our schools open? How are we going to do the infrastructure? It's going to completely destroy the infrastructure. Okay. So what do we tell these people? I want to say a quote, and then I'm going to pass it to you guys. The climate envoy, John Kerry, says this. He told reporters this. I have to laugh. He said, the workers in the oil and gas industry can be the people who go to work to make solar panels. He then went on to say these jobs will create opportunities for young people and for older workers shifting to new professions, and it will maximize the creation of accessible training opportunities. Now, here's my problem with this. What if they don't want to shift professions? Like, when does a government have, okay, we're going to close down this section of jobs, but now we're going to transfer you to this section of work? Like, that's my first question to you. Is it mine?
I don't know if it's mine or not. I turned it down. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. And the second section is, question I have for you is, the jobs are not created yet. So they canceled 10,000 jobs about there, but they don't
That,
have the jobs
that's my biggest concern.
waiting for them. And we have our, let me see, who is she? That White House press secretary, Jen Psaki. I'm not sure I pronounced it right. That she was kind of interrogated by a reporter saying, what's going on with this? Where's the green jobs for these workers to go to? And she just didn't have an answer. She's like, yes, the president wants to give them green jobs. There's jobs going to be in the future, but there's no, like, where's the help for all these people? So I'm going to
Well,
pass it
John
to
Kerry,
you.
when he said that, Melanie, he also said in the same sentences that he said, we're going to transition people out of oil jobs into green jobs. He said within 30 years. But if you are 30 years old right now or 35 years old and you were making $100,000 a year in the oil industry and you make an executive order saying you don't have a job anymore, and within 30 years, it'll work for you in the other industry, but you're going to be too old. You're not the jobs, and you don't get a job like I'm working for Exxon and therefore I just go over and work for Mobil. That doesn't work that way. You have to apply for the job, you have to move, you have to change things. There's a lot more to than it sounds so nice. We're going to shut down your industry and you can just work over here now. Well, what if you live in Ohio but the industry's in California? The new
Yeah.
industry. It's not in Ohio. You don't get to just change jobs. It doesn't work that way. And the jobs aren't there anyway because there's only so many people working in that industry. It will expand. I'm all for renewable energy, but it's going to take a while. I would have never done what they just did. But he did run on it. So that's my biggest.
Well, we're gonna have Brandy try to reconnect. She was having a bad
Am I
connection.
still on with you?
Yes.
I'm sorry. We're having problems today.
Oh, that's all right. You know what? We're gonna go with the flow. We're on. Hopefully, Brandy can get a new connection and she can rejoin us. Let's see. Here she is. Brandy. I think she's still trying to get on. Give me a thumbs up off camera, Brandy, when you're ready.
But what I was saying is when John Kerry said that, immediately my brain said that's not a doable situation. You don't if you tell me I can no longer my industry is done and I don't have a job anymore. When you tell me, but don't worry, you can get a job some other place. It may not pay as much. You'll have to move to another state. All these other things, but it's okay. You'll be fine. You used to make 100,000, but don't worry. We'll give you some government money at about 1,000 a month. But I was making 8,000 a month. Yeah, but
Right.
don't worry, we'll give you 1,000 a month. I mean,
Yeah.
it just doesn't work the way Kerry said it. It's not going to.
Well,
So
and in this climate of the whole economy gone bad because of COVID, why would you
right,
add 10,000 more people to those numbers of now they have
those
to
were good
figure
paying
out?
jobs.
They were very good paying jobs. And, this one foreman, he said, my trade is in labor. The money is so much better than running a crew. I wouldn't be anywhere near doing that in wind turbine. So he's saying the jobs that they want to transition these people to, they're not jobs that are going to continue to give them their livelihood. They're
Correct.
just not. You have another gentleman. His name is Behringer. He said he's now working at a power plant in Omaha, and he's worked on the wind turbine before, and it's pittiness. He gets up and wonders, why am I here? What am I doing with my life? So, yeah, these are jobs, but it's like you're telling someone who has a passion for one career, you know what? We don't care. We're going to move you to another career. Is that America?
Well, especially because it wasn't the marketplace. It was the government going into private industry and saying, we're going to now stop you from doing this. Private industry, not government. The government controls itself, and I don't have a problem with that. But they're going in making and one man. That's the other thing. This isn't Congress.
No,
This
it's
isn't.
man's
This
decision.
is one man saying, okay, you guys aren't going to have jobs. And now, but I keep going back to this. He said he was going to do this. So if you're upset about this and you voted for him, maybe you should listen to what the politicians are saying, at least to the people, not to you. If you were in the oil
Everybody
industry,
else.
he's going to tell you a nice thing. But every politician is going to do that. So I'm not picking on President Biden. I'm saying every politician, listen to what they say to the people who disagree with you, and maybe you'll get an idea of what they're really going to do. And
Yeah.
this is what he's done. But he did say he was going to do this. I don't think anybody thought it would be this fast, but he did. So
It's like such an overreach. First, you have COVID closing down restaurants and businesses and shutting people home, and you can understand that to an extent of because there was it's a health crisis. You got to get under control. But here, it's like there was no warning for these people. Like they knew something might come down the line, but they didn't. They weren't like, "Hey, you got 60 days. You got." A year, 3 years to prepare yourself. It's like, you know what? We're stopping it now. This
well, I've got
gentleman,
relatives that live in the Midwest, and they voted for Joe Biden, and that's fine. I'm friends with people who vote for Joe Biden. I have no. It's perfectly fine with me who you vote for, and but we talked about this during the election. I said, man, your economies are going to get destroyed, and they go, no, that's just politicians talk. They would never do it, and that was quite a few people because I have quite a few cousins in the Midwest, and I have an uncle there that said the same thing. There's no way that you're just making stuff up. He would never do that. Yeah, he did it first. Now, I'm a president for a month and I'm doing it. And
well,
I'm not
yeah,
going to text any of these people and say I told you so, because look,
um,
their lives are now going down, and they were pretty good lives. These are people who had good jobs,
yes,
and they're not going to have good jobs. And so I feel bad for them. I'm certainly not going to pile on and say, told you so. But I still say, if a politician tells you he's going to do something, you better be careful to vote for him if you don't want that to happen.
right. This gentleman sums it up. His name is Noel, and he says this. This is from a CBS News article. He says, if you do a task, you do a job for 13 years, you'd think in 13 years you'd be comfortable, and then you never have to worry about another job. What was the last 13 years for? The last 13 years of being out on the road, being away from my family was all for what? For me to be sitting here talking to you about losing it all. That sums it up for so many people in our country now is what is it all for if the government can come and just wipe it away and say, you know what, invalid. We'll change, do something different. We'll point you to another direction. That's all I had to say about this pipeline. But I think people need to, like you said, yes, he ran on these issues, but doing it in a way that is so abrupt that people don't have time to even prepare for the decisions coming out of the presidency.
Well, I
And
think historically, Melanie, this started in, and I could be wrong, but I remember Barack Obama making a bunch of executive orders, especially concerning the healthcare stuff.
right,
And now he did get Obamacare, affordable healthcare through the Congress. He did, but he made all kind of executive orders afterwards and leading up and concerning all these things, and people were complaining about it. And then when Trump came in, he did executive orders too, and people complained about it. The left completely complained. They complained that because every executive order he did, almost it seemed like it went to court.
right.
Unless somebody takes this to court and says that's unconstitutional, you can't do it, then I think he's just going to keep going. And I can't even blame him. I mean, why wouldn't you if nobody's going to give you any balk? But President Obama had a lot of backlash, and President Trump had a lot of backlash. So
Right.
far, President Biden's had none legally, no legal
No,
backlash. And so I don't know how that's going to work out, but I feel really bad for people, and I feel bad for us. I'll be honest with you. I don't really want to pay $5 a gallon again, and I don't want to be dependent on foreign oil again. But
no, and
we're gonna be.
we are going to be, but that brings up a point. Um, that brings up a point. Hold on, let me see if I can find it because it did say that. Well, yeah, it just brings. I can't find it right now, but it does bring up a point where we are now going to be relying on foreign oil the prices are going to go up, and there's really nothing we can do about it. It's the way it's going to be. So,
Laws of supply and demand.
yeah, unfortunately. But let's talk about something. You talked about feeling it. Now, this might be something you don't know about, and I didn't know about, but it's something I think is worth talking about because over and over again, our children get impacted in ways by politics that just are just, to me, mind-boggling. That anybody would think it's okay, and this executive order is one of those. Have you heard about the transgender equality order? This one is intended to enable transgender women that goes after male puberty to compete in women's sports in schools.
Right.
You've
Yeah.
heard about that?
Yeah.
So,
I had a big argument in my own household over it.
well, I think it's something we need to discuss because it doesn't matter if you're transgender pro or con. So, transgender woman, let's just make sure we understand what that is. A transgender woman is a biologically born male, has gone through puberty, but identifies now as a woman. It doesn't mean he's had any surgeries or anything. This biological male has gone through puberty, has its testosterone, has its muscle, has its bone mass, and then now he identifies as a woman or a girl. So what they're saying is that person is now able to compete against other girls in sports.
Yeah. And not only competing against them in sports, but competing against them for scholarships in their colleges. Um, I remember Title IX when it came out because I'm an athlete and I played sports, and there was a big complaint that women didn't get enough, 70s, 80s. Women weren't getting enough opportunities for scholarships because they were dominated by the male sports. Now, the argument again for the male sports was that most people go watch male sports, and the only female sport that carried its own weight economically in NC2A stuff was basketball. Women's basketball pays for itself and then pays for other stuff too, because very popular. But other than that, there are no sports that women's sports that pay for themselves. So they said, well, yeah, but you guys, not enough people come to watch you. And then they said, well, that's not fair. So they did Title IX, and there's a lot to this. I'm making it really small, short thing. But when that happened, now you have the money from males in football, males in basketball, females in basketball, because they all make money, and then they take that money and then they give it to scholarships to people who are on the lacrosse team or something that nobody goes to watch. Nothing against lacrosse. That was, if you're a lacrosse player, good for you. But nobody comes to watch you, so you don't make any money for the school. But you still get a scholarship, and for girls in swimming and girls in gymnastics and girls in volleyball. No, they now have these scholarships, and they have to do it at a certain percentage to the male scholarships they give. And that's Title IX. It's the law. And they do. So a lot of girls get their college scholarships paid for because they're really good high school girl athletes, women athletes.
Right.
They're good athletes competing against women. They're great athletes. They're just woman to woman. But what's going to happen, and I don't know the answer to this, but what's going to happen when on a 12 rostered basketball team, and I don't know what college plays, NBA plays 12. I don't know what college plays, but if they play 12, what's going to happen if 8 of them are transgendered women?
Well, Bill,
they're bigger, stronger, faster, and they're taking the scholarships from people who aren't as gifted as them genetically, and I don't know how that's going to work out.
Well, I've watched, I can't tell you, countless of numbers of interviews with young female athletes. All right. The heartache in them and expressing how they've worked hard, they've trained hard, they've done their due diligence, their sacrifice to get where they are. Here they are in sophomore, senior, year of high school. They will all sit up to get these scholarships to college. They had their way paved through, and then the transgender female has come in and dominated that, and so now out of 4 spots, there's only 1 to a biological female. because
Right.
3 of them went to transgender males. And it's not that you're against a transgender female, but the thing is this: there's no way a 15-year-old female biological is going to be able to wrestle a 15-year-old biological male and win in the wrestling
Not
game. Do you even
correct.
want that?
Well, they're not going to be able to when it's best to best. I mean, I
No.
love athletes, and I do. I love female athletes, and there's some girls that are great. But if you're going to compete best to best, the male's always going to win that.
They're going to win because it's just their body structure, it's their way they are designed. And so there are so many young ladies now devastated saying, what are we doing? What do we do with our lives? Because this one section of society has been given so much freedom. It took away our freedom to succeed in our goals. I want to say what Nikki Haley, the former South Carolina governor, calls this an attack on women's rights. She is going to bat to say, listen, it's not that we don't want it to be equal, but there's got to be some kind of standard, some kind of guide to the structure. Like, is this person, built where they can compete against the person fairly, so that it is equal and it is right. The tennis champion, Martina say it.
Navratilova.
There you go.
Martina Navratilova.
She says this. She says that she is looking for a special provision to be made for the elite sport, as this only affects the school sports. But she says this, that she supports equality, but the physical advantages for transgender women competitors who had gone through male puberty were pretty obvious. She
Yeah.
says she is opposed to an all-inclusive situation where trans men and women, just based on their self-identity, would be able to compete without any mitigation or rules whatsoever. It's not a level playing field.
Well, I remember when she played Jimmy Connors. They were both later on in life. They're same age, I believe. Actually, I think Jimmy Connors is about 5 years older, but this was when they were not that good anymore. Like, they weren't the world's best. They both were the best in the world at one time, but they played each other in a tennis match. Didn't get the same stuff as Bobby Riggs and Billie Jean King, but they did play each other, and they gave her the whole court, like if they were playing doubles, and they gave him just the singles court. And I don't remember, she won a game or two, but it was straight sets, and he destroyed her. And she was, as good as it got for females, and he was really great at one time too. My favorite tennis player right now, there's two sisters, and they're the best. And but Serena, of course, she came to the forefront the last quite a few years, just the best ever. She played I don't remember what he was ranked, 203 or something in the world, and got destroyed. That was a few years ago, but she was great. No girl could beat her.
Right.
Riker was a boxer. I fought in the cage and stuff, and that was one of my sports. And this girl was a great fighter. Riker was her name, and she was great, unbeaten. I think she had one draw, knocked everybody out that she fought. She fought a guy in Thailand, I believe it was, a Muay Thai fighter. She was bigger than him. She was taller, heavier, and everything. She got knocked out bad, and he wasn't even a ranked fighter. It's not fair to females that are born female to say, well, you can just go compete against this person. It's a female. I don't mean it. That's a female too. Well, no, not really. I mean, not athletically, they're not.
The biological aspect has to be taken into consideration. It really does. But talking about Serena Williams, I watched an interview with her, and she said under no circumstances would she battle or go against a man for a title win, because she said she would lose every time. She came out and she said, I will lose every single time. I will battle every woman. I'm any woman, you bring them to me. But a man, she said, it's a different sport. Men play tennis differently. They're faster. They're agile in different ways. They're just different sports when it's male versus female. So
Yeah. And what's going to happen on those scholarships things, Melanie? Really, that was a discussion I was having with a family member that was very upset with me. And because they kept saying the same thing, which was, you hate people. And I go, I don't hate anybody. I just don't think that this is good. And I was talking about the Title IX. And I said, are we going to get back to where we were before Title IX? Are we going to get back to where girls don't get scholarships? Or, well, they're saying, and this person kept saying, well, that person is a girl. And I go, well, okay, are we going to get back to somebody who was born female
Right.
never getting a scholarship anymore? Because they're not going to be able to. And I can't say never, because there's some incredible.
I mean, there will be slots open, but
But
the majority is being
yeah,
taken away, and this just opens the door for even more. If you're listening and you have a comment about this, we are live, so you can chat us
yeah.
right now on Facebook. All the ones that you see, any social media that there is actually. So chat and let us know what you think about this. Is it okay for the transgender women that are after puberty to be competing with biological women on sports? We want to hear about you and what you think
And
about this.
and my whole point was just the scholarships, because I remember when there weren't that many girl sports teams, and now there are a lot, both in high school, college, and I think there should be. I've always thought that. And so I don't know how this is going to play out in the future. And
I
if
just
you
think it's more
disagree with us, please, that's perfectly fine with us. We're not. I can guarantee you, Melanie, there's people screaming at us right now.
I
And
understand. Listen, it's not about being against transgender,
right,
male or female. This is simply you have one aspect of society, which is biological females that are going to be hurt by this and is being hurt. And you have, kids should be kids and they shouldn't have to worry about, being unfairly matched in a sports. Women go against women, men go against men. Transgender women and men is a different aspect to that. You know, I understand, you identify as a woman, that's good for you, but we don't want
well,
you
we even
discriminated in any area. But there's got to be a balance here when it's
one of the people at my house during the Super Bowl brought up, they said, well, maybe we have to have 4 categories of sports. And I was like, oh, maybe. I don't know.
or do
I got
away.
no answers, but
Someone said do away with male and female altogether, and you just put them all together in a pot. Um,
then only males are gonna win. That's
yeah,
it.
I don't think there's
After
an
puberty. Before puberty, that's not true. I remember being a little kid in 4th grade. I'm a short person. I'm only 5'8", but I was not a tall kid. And I wasn't even that short. I was just probably a little shorter than average as a kid. I'm only inch or two shorter than average now, and I was always that way. But there was some giant girls in 4th and 5th grade, and they
yes.
usually ended up being about 5'8", same as me, but they were a foot taller than me in 4th grade,
Mhm.
and probably better at some sports because of that advantage that they had of growing up faster. But
Yes,
after puberty, that advantage completely disappears.
it really does. And this executive order specifies after puberty. So what, I don't know, I don't know, there's no answer to it, but I thought it was worth a conversation to bring to light that if anyone listening has children that are in sports in schools, be careful, have an eye out for this, to your students about this, your children about this, and make sure it's not a hate thing, it's not a
Right.
personal thing, but it's just something about being fair. Just like
We
when when you're a boxer, you have to get weighed and you have to say, okay, I can match these other boxers. We're in the same weight.
mhm,
What do you call that?
weight
Weight
class.
weight class. You gotta start having that now for female, sports. Put them in the same weight class. Put them in the same strength class or whatever. However you gotta do it, but make it equal to something like the boxing, where every man just doesn't box every man. You now have to weight class it. I think that might be a kind of a solution if you could figure out how to do that.
Yeah, and I don't know if we can. I think that when we get too far away from God, to be honest with you, we just go crazy as society. Historically, it seems to have happened. I believe that we have told God we don't need him and he's not helping us. And that's kind of my my theory. And then and these are well-meaning people. The people that were arguing with me this weekend, and I mean arguing, I kept saying, I don't want to talk about it. It's a football game going on. But they wouldn't leave it alone.
Yeah. It's just
I kept saying, I don't have any answers. I don't, but I just don't think they should get scholarships from people born female. That's all. That's all I think. I think that's very dangerous to do. And who knows what the future will hold. And they were like, oh, it was saying that pipeline. I got, oh, that will never happen. I'm like, and I didn't think of the pipeline, but I was told that during the election. That will never happen. Because he said he's going to cut down your jobs, man. And they're going, nope, he's not going to do it. And those were people that really hated Trump. And they go, I don't care what happens. I hate Trump. Now, I'm not going to ask them how they feel about their $100,000 a year job gone now, because I'm just not going to bring it up.
Well, David William Buckland is on, and he says he wish he caught this late, but thanks for discussing the issues of the transgender executive order. Well, thank you, David, and feel free to ask your questions or make your comment. We'll show it up on the screen and discuss it. We're going to segue a little bit. We don't have a lot of time left, but I do want to talk about this, and we're going to get in this show. We might just get in trouble today, Bill. I'm sorry about this. But immigration. Immigration. So what do we talk about? Let me just start with this. Let me give some preface.
Oh, go ahead.
Let me give some preface on this. For the executive order on immigration, it says this, that, and David said amen to your recent comments, Bill.
Thank you, David.
So here's the executive order. It halts the border wall construction, pausing most deportations from the interior of the United States, rescinding travel and immigration restrictions on several Muslim majority places. So I got some aspects I do want to talk about, but let me say this. This executive order, I'm not against any person of society. I'm really not. It also, which I think is good, I like this part really well, that it actually safeguards the DACA program that offers work permits and deportation relief to more than 640,000 undocumented immigrants that were brought to the U.S. as a child. Now, I don't think that if you're brought here by your parents as a child, it's just not your fault. How are you going to get deported to somewhere you've never been since you were 2 years old?
Which, what's funny is when Trump kept trying to get DACA, like, okay, we'll make a deal. No children will be deported that were brought here. And the Democrats said, no, we won't do it. And then they said, he wants to deport you. But he kept pushing for that. And he didn't make an executive order, but they never did leave. I mean, we never sent anybody away that was under DACA. But that was, by the way, DACA was an executive order under the Obama administration. And not through Congress, but an executive order. So that nobody was sent away, but he actually tried to get laws passed through Congress. And of course, the Democrats controlled the House at that time, and still do. And he tried to get these things, and they wouldn't do it. They tabled it. They go, nope, we're not going to pass any laws helping the DACA kids because Trump will get the, he'll get like credit for it. And now they're going to write an executive order for the same thing Trump tried to get through Congress. I just think that's funny.
Well, David has
politics is rough. That's life.
David has a question. He says 3,000 plus illegals are crossing our border every day. Where are they going? Well, David, I'll tell you where they're going. Well, here's I want to talk about this little segue here. There's a couple of things I want to talk about. So what he's done is he's allowing the catch and release, meaning this. You have illegal immigrants at the southern border. This allows them to remain in the United States until they get processed, which can take years. All right. So what happens is the border control can pick them up, hold them for no more than 72 hours, and then release them into the United States with a court hearing. We'll let you know when your hearing is, but it can take years to get that hearing. So here's what I want to say about this. One, how do we do this with COVID? Because, well, let me stop there. I'm going ahead of myself. So illegal immigrants. I just want to say the word illegal. Does it mean anything, Bill?
No.
It means
No, it doesn't. And most people don't show up. I think it's like 90% of everybody that gets released never show up for their court date that they're even given. But
no.
I kind of understand it, and I think immigration is so complicated. I myself, no one would do what I would do if I was king of the forest, and I might not do it either. But I've said what I think would be a good idea is let every person come here that wants to, no matter who they are. However, you get until you're a citizen, you'll get nothing from the public dole. You won't get anything. I mean, just nothing. I'm not going to give you any food stamps. I'm not going to give you anything for free. You're going to work for it. And then the people that were coming here would be trying really hard to work. And look, most people coming here are trying hard to work, but they're willing also to work very inexpensive. I used to work in the construction trade. And, once again, right now, my friends that are still in the construction trade in California, I don't know about other states, but they're complaining because they're getting paid less today than they were getting paid 12, 15 years ago, because so many people are living here illegally that don't pay taxes and willing to undercut their pay. And people are willing to hire them. Oh, come work on my house and I'll pay you cash under the table. And it's going to cost less than the legal guy who has to pay insurances and all that kind of stuff and pay his taxes. And they're getting paid less than they were 15 years ago.
Well, here's the thing.
It's a consequence to this. There is consequences to every action. There's an equal and opposite reaction. That's the way it is.
But this is what gets me. All right. This is what gets me. Illegal people are coming in. They're able to be held, but then they get released into the United States. Here's 2 points that I have a problem with on this. One, people who are going through the immigration process legally are not getting processed. There's a story on ABC News, and it's a woman named Abby Matson. Now she's pregnant. She's about to have her baby, and she has been waiting for her fiance. They both lived in Peru. They were working in a nonprofit refugee camp in Peru. He's still there. She came home because of the COVID. So they went ahead and did their application for a visa, for a fiance visa. That was June 2020. They were told that there's been no progress because of COVID. They have reduced their staff, closed the doors, restricted people from going to the offices. So 95% of all visas have been denied since COVID. So here's someone who is trying to do it the right way, saying, hey, let's let the government of America know we want to come over, and they're not being able to get processed. They don't get a chance to come into the country and wait and see. We'll give you a hearing. Yeah, you need your fiance so you can get married, have your baby, he can support you and your child. Okay, you've been an American citizen for most of your life. Okay, we'll bring him in and then get a hearing date later. You don't that for people doing it the right way. You only get that for people doing the illegal way. And I have a problem with that.
And by the way, I do too, and I think most do when you explain it that way. But looks like my family is out of the dentist. Hey.
We almost have to go. We're going to have to run this show again next week because I still have 2 more points I want to make. But here's the thing. Hello, family.
Yeah, it's just Bree. Bree showed up. This is my lovely daughter.
Hello, Bree. How are you?
15 years old.
I'm good.
Prettiest person in the world. In the world.
Of course she is.
You didn't take after me. That's good.
And so David said, if you're still there, we're going to talk about your comment. He says that folks are being placed initially in the same facilities that they were before. So does this administration really care? Well, I'll tell you what, and part of what we're going to have to throw to next week is the prison system. The
Right.
immigration refugees are
Because
being
there was a
held.
big executive order on prisons.
Yes,
That's the one that I did the most reading about.
that is, we're going to do a whole show. We're going to go and do that all next week, is do the show on the executive order of prisons, because it affects immigrants and people don't even realize that. It affects everyday people. It's a racial issue. I mean, there's a lot to unpack on the prisons. But what I want to say about this before we leave, since Bree's in the car with you and it is 3 o'clock, COVID testing. Here's the second point. American citizens can't come into the country if they leave it and you fly to another country, you want to fly back into this country, you have to have a COVID-19 negative test to come back in the country.
True.
It doesn't tell you how to obtain it, and it doesn't tell you that to pay for it. You have to figure that out yourself, from what I understand. But this catch and release immigrants are not getting COVID testing. They're not getting quarantined. They are going to some charities have set up on the border to house illegal immigrants, and those charity housing, they don't have testing either. Some of them have been petitioning Biden's administration to send COVID tests so they can go ahead and try to process the ones within their charity house. But overall, okay, American citizens again, what I can't, Bill. I'm just.
Here's the problem. There's so many inconsistencies and contradictions. And by the way, I really do believe if I was the king of the forest, I would make bad decisions sometimes and make contradictory decisions. So I'm not saying that everybody's got to get it right every time, but this doesn't make any sense to any person that when you explain it the way you just did. I don't even care what your side you're on. You'll be like, yeah, that's kind of odd.
Do you realize that an average person, if you don't stand in those long 2-hour day lines, they're paying up to $300 for a COVID test? You know, if you don't have any insurance to back up your free test, and you don't stand in those, at least in LA, they're like days long lines to get COVID tested. People are paying for that. And they're doing it because the government is saying, if you want to come back in the country, you need to get COVID tested. If you want to do this, you need to get COVID tested. But illegal immigrants, hey, just come on in and don't worry about it. Now, I'm sorry, they've been traveling for how long? They have been exposing how many countries are coming into the States through our borders, and we don't have to demand any type of quarantine or testing. I just have a problem with that. And I don't care who the president is. It could have still been Trump. I don't care if it's Obama or Bush. It's wrong that we are sitting here making people that have legal immigration processes are getting declined and are on hold, while illegally you can come in and be said, hey, just have your life. We'll catch up with you in a year or two. It baffles me. And, we'll talk about the prison system next week, because that's a whole
that's a pretty big deal. Yeah. I read some of the I read that executive order, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think that's implementable. But once again, who knows? I haven't sued him, so I don't know. If anybody's going to challenge this, but some of that stuff, if you implement some of the stuff that they're talking about, you're going to have wholesale riots and murders in the prison system. So,
and if you think that, well, okay, we don't want to hear the show about prisons, it's going to affect everybody. It's not just for the criminals. It's not just for those who have invested in the private prisons. It's going to restructure society. And you need to know what this is. David Buckland, he says that every time he hears President Biden, I'm going to say president out of respect, discuss his executive orders, he claims he is striving to ensure national security. So I gather, David, you're not a Biden fan. But you know what? He does say he's for security. But I don't know. Not building the wall, just allowing open borders. I don't see how that helps national security to allow people to come in without being COVID tested. I don't understand that. We are battling a pandemic, and it's been a pandemic that has broken Americans. It has stolen lives. It has stolen the way we allow people to die with dignity. It has stolen businesses, generational businesses, but yet we're going to allow people to come in illegally and not even care if they have COVID or not.
Well, when you pick things due to, and many people do, due to your political decisions as opposed to just using common sense, this is what you're going to get. And by the way, it's not the first time in history that we have done that kind of stuff, making decisions based on political preconceived notions as opposed to maybe just sitting around as a team, because there's no team right now. And by the way, there wasn't last time either. And so I mean, it's just, hey, we're going to do it my way now. Well, that's the reason for the checks and balances we started this show with. And I understand what Brandy said is, if the person up there is doing what you want, then maybe you're like, oh, I'm okay with this. But you know what, if the person's up there doing what you want without checks and balances, when they don't do what you want, you probably be screaming, hey, what happened to the checks and balances? So let's not get rid of them too soon. That's my only concern.
And like you said, Bill, you know, Bush did executive orders, Obama did executive orders, Trump did executive orders, Biden's going to do it. And it's just every presidency, regardless, sure, Democrat or Republic, is taking it to the next step. What's the next president going to be doing? We don't rank
the last one got fought in court every step of the way. What's going to happen this time is going to set up for what the next one will probably have to do. So I don't know. And I don't know the future. I like history. I have no idea what the future holds.
Well, I hate that Brandy could not continue to stay on. She had technical difficulties. We always miss her, but I'm excited that we didn't get to the prison system, because she has a lot to say about that too. So next week we'll deal with the executive order and the prison system. And then after that, it might take 2 weeks or so, Bill, we're going to talk about the green plan. I want to just completely unfold the green plan so people can understand what to expect when this unfolds in our communities. If there's a subject that you would like to see us discuss, or you want to take part in, by all means, join us. Let me get, you can contact us at the www.truthtohear.org is the website, or email at info@truthtohear.org, or go to any social media at Truth to Hear. Let us know what conversations you want to have, what you would like to be part of. We do believe that knowledge is power, and that's what we're trying to do here. Not pin one side against the other. It doesn't matter what side or what you believe in, but knowledge is power. If we can just give you what's out there, give you the knowledge, give you history to combat, what's happening today, where it's going to take us, then we're giving you something worthwhile. So thank you for joining us today. Don't forget your daily dose of truth to hear. Let's go over and see what that entails. So tomorrow, Truth Talk Conversation, author David Buckland, he actually chatted with us today. We're going to air a conversation I have with him about his new book. So that will be tomorrow at 2:00. Thursday, Diving Deeper, the Church of Philadelphia. Only 2 more weeks of this series. So catch up on YouTube, or go to our YouTube at Truth to Hear and catch up the last 6 weeks or so. Tomorrow we'll go to Philadelphia. And then Friday's message is Healing Our Land. Thank you for joining us. See you next week at Truth to Hear.